We're back, we're back, we're back.
It has been
2 weeks.
2 weeks. I went on vacation, and then by the time I got
No,
back,
but remember we had the episode.
oh yeah, while I was on vacation, it came out.
Yeah, we had an episode, and then your girl and her concussion symptoms popped
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And then, same thing again.
We're working through it. We're doing that when
This
we're
is what
able.
happens when you follow a spoonie during a podcast.
Right? Me, mom, trying to do all of us, right? So
Trying to chug away at life.
survive, survival. And speaking of survival, I am your co-host Mariah.
Oh my god, I didn't even.
We
I'm
didn't,
so
we didn't,
sorry. We didn't introduce ourselves. This is the Wait Here Please podcast. My name is Sophie.
and I'm Mariah again. And like you said, it's been a long time, so let's get back into it.
Oopsie daisies. Um, yeah, so I think that this is a perfect thing for us.
Yeah,
Specifically, I decided to wear this shirt today that says "Life is not tough, so are you, but so are you."
because life is tough.
Life is.
For
I'm
you.
reading it the other way. Okay, I'm trying. I'm doing best. And the reason why I specifically wore this
Mhm.
is today we are talking about what?
We are talking about Mental Health Awareness Month because that is May. So, mental health, all of this we're going to dive into, which is, fitting because, as we've mentioned before, we are both social workers. Um,
And
and
if you didn't know, we're
yeah,
social workers.
social workers, clinical social workers.
Yeah, we're both social workers. We have had various jobs in our lives.
Yes.
Um, and we met through our master's program.
Did.
So,
One of the reasons we survived the master's program because we were,
this was during COVID.
yeah, we were halfway through our master's program when COVID hit.
No, it was just starting. Because we started in January, COVID, and then literally January.
I thought we were supposed to start our internships and then COVID hit.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I remember yes, because we were in our internships until March.
Yeah, so our
Yeah,
internships got set back a little bit, but we
we
did it.
survived. We
We
have our,
survived.
and so that's a little bit about us.
Yeah.
Mental health is really important to us, not only because we're social workers, but just in general. Like, and people in our lives throw that in our face.
I
I'm
was told by my husband of stop therapizing me. I'm not. I'm just trying to talk to you.
I can't help it. Jeez.
But it's part of who I am.
I just
But it's
can't
really
tell.
good. It's nice because my two kids, like my older one, I talk with you about all the time. Um, she takes breaks when she is getting angry, and she goes and does a reset. I'm like,
Yep,
you know,
she does. She's good.
yeah, the positives of being a therapist. Sometimes, obviously, there's negative because families, some nuts in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what's hardest about being a social worker or someone in the mental health field is their personal lives. So, uh,
Yeah.
but I think the biggest thing is the reason why we want to spread about mental health awareness is even though it's 2025, people still don't really talk about it.
When it's it's so important, and you think of every single day stuff. I mean, everything is mental health. Everything is mental illness, and it impacts our bodies, and it impacts our minds and our health, and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. That like this needs to be talked about and normalized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I can give a perfect example of why mental health is so significant regarding physical health.
Mhm.
So in 2018, um, I was driving home from school, from home. I was driving to school actually. I was in college, and I started to feel really funny. And I pulled over and I called my mom. I was like, I don't feel good. Something's wrong. And she's like, how far are you from school? And I was like 10 minutes. She's like, okay. Literally, I walked into my um apartment and I collapsed on the couch and I was paralyzed for 8 hours. And they thought I had MS, like they didn't know what was going on. I ended up having seizures. I spent a week at Tufts Medical, and then I was diagnosed with psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. So what that is you're having a physical reaction. You're having a physical seizure where your body is doing jerking movements, but you're awake. So I feel everything. And sometimes I can talk. Um, but the reason and what is behind psychogenic non-epileptic seizures is that it's trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how your body is reacting to stressful situations. And the reason it's so significant is people have been misdiagnosed for years. So people who are someone who has psychogenic non-epileptic seizures are being given seizure medications,
Yeah.
even though they're not epileptic.
I didn't realize it that depth, and that's new information to me. And just, but like I said, it impacts our bodies in a significant way to that extreme, to just tension in your bodies,
Exactly.
the nausea, I
Mm-hmm.
know some people get anxious poops. Like our bodies react when our mental health isn't at its best.
Exactly. Like that was like the severe. There's also like um I'm glad you mentioned um anxious poops because that happens all the time like when you're going out. Oh, at
Yes,
least for me. um or like when like a big thing is happening and you're like excited but like you're still anxious.
exactly.
Um and then I think people don't realize how much trauma affects mental health and how your relationships are then affected in the long run.
Yeah. And I can speak on that with the trauma aspect. And I know you probably can too. But speaking for myself, from somebody who watched their father die unexpectedly, to sexual abuse, to military sexual abuse, s- stuff there, domestic violence relationships. I've been able, and I'm not sure if you can see, but I have scars all over my shoulder because my
No, I could, yeah,
tension,
no.
yeah, no. My tension has always been built here. I get migraines. My past stuff definitely impacts relationships, or has for the most part in the past. I'm trying to do my best with that in this marriage. Um, you go down the path of drinking and that impacts you.
Mm-hmm.
The use of substances, whether legal or illegal, like all this stuff to make us feel temporarily better
Right.
impacts us.
And then that ends up leading to homelessness.
Yeah.
That's why there is such a high veteran homelessness crisis.
Yeah.
Um,
Or even the drug use you look at. I know down
exactly.
here there's so many homeless camps, and unfortunately they're being kicked out and moved around instead of giving resources or helping them get back on their feet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom, fucking bitch. I hate him. He is like he's throwing out people's stuff
Mhm.
from homeless camps.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is everything they have. This is their livelihood. Like, what are we doing? We should be giving them public housing, giving them doctor's appointments, helping them get back on their feet. That is how you get them off the fucking streets if you
Exactly.
really want to.
Exactly. Finding the ways to help and engage them and encourage them. Um, yeah, it's sad. And then of course there's people that abuse that too. I've been one to give like bread and peanut butter and jelly to people on the side of the road and even socks,
Yeah.
and they just look at me like, what about money? I'm like, this is food. You're homeless. Like, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's like the drug use or the
alcohol stuff.
alcohol, like you were talking about. Yep.
Yeah. Or just, yeah. So it's it's everywhere, and it can be as simple as, just generalized anxiety or some depression here and there, or it can be extreme as the substance use, other psychotic or
Mhm. I
different
mean,
narcissists. Like,
perfect.
yeah,
Another perfect example, Kanye West,
yeah, bipolar, right? That's what he's.
bipolar and schizophrenic. Um, if anyone doesn't know what's happening, he's having a severe crash out. And he's now a Nazi.
And he's
And
white now, right? That's the last I heard.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah. I think he posted a picture of himself whitewashed. Mhm. Who knows? But this is stuff that when you have that extreme of a mental health and you're not getting help and you're not regularly taking the medication that's supposed to help with things at that level.
And you're using substances instead, and you're surrounding yourself with people who are taking advantage of you. And, like, literally, mental health affects your life in every single aspect.
Exactly. And I stopped listening to Kanye West stuff, not just for the mental health stuff,
Right.
but what he's done
Correct.
and
Me
the
too.
way he's treated his wife or ex-wife, soon to be whoever
Yeah.
she is now. But like, yeah, I'm not a Kanye West fan, but that's mental health.
Right. No, I agree. Yesterday on my stream, I had a very long conversation about Kanye West, and I was very honest in that he needs to be sectioned.
Yeah, he
Um,
needs to have a Britney Spears hold on him.
yeah. But then also another example could be John Fetterman. He had a stroke
Mm,
um, a couple of months before the election with Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania,
yep.
but it was clear that he probably should have dropped out, but he didn't because the Democrats wanted him to win. He won, and now it's come out how much his stroke has affected his mental health, how much his stroke has changed his brain chemistry.
That's just a little bit of why it's so important to not just this month, but every single day pay attention to your mental health, your support mental health, your the peers or people in your lives' mental health, because it can change day to day. And it doesn't,
Yeah.
like I said, have to be the extreme. It could be someone's just feeling very overwhelmed and anxious, or, with the medication,
Mm-hmm.
they're not able to get their ADHD medication or depression
Right.
and like needing help through this stuff, or even Xanax or panic attack medication of
Mhm.
whatever sort.
Or like they can't afford therapy.
Exactly, especially since the price of everything's going up. I know, like even normal medication,
Mhm.
my husband's inhaler went from like $30 to almost $100.
First of all, inhalers should be free. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
I mean, I've ranted about this a lot.
exactly. It's insurance. It's how it is.
Yeah.
But it's important, and so that's what we're here to talk with you about.
Yeah. And you're probably like, oh my God, enough with the awareness months. But here's the thing, the awareness months are there for a reason.
Mhm.
And, right, have you seen anyone talk about this?
I have only because it's all over my Instagram feed, but that's because of the people I follow or the groups that I follow. Outside of that, no, no. And
Yeah.
we talk about ribbon colors. Green is the ribbon color for mental health, and
I haven't seen any
I
green.
haven't seen anything.
The only time I've seen it, like, besides my feed is at my physical therapist's office. But
Okay.
other than that, like, I have not seen it, like, being promoted on, like, the news or anything like that. And the thing is, they could connect things just like we did right now and be very simple because there's so much happening in this world, especially in the United States, that is affecting people's mental health. We are seeing severely traumatic things happening.
Exactly.
Even
And
if it's
even
not affecting us, we're still visually seeing it.
exactly, and even if it's not a severe thing, we are going Mother's Day, we're going into Father's Day, what Memorial Day is coming up. All of these things impact so many different people, whether you are a woman that lost a child, you don't have a relationship with your mom, somebody that lost their father or doesn't have a relationship with their father. Memorial Day, I mean, I don't need to say anything about that. We all know.
July
Um,
4th with the fireworks
exactly.
for PTSD.
Exactly. All of this stuff is coming up. And whether, again, big or small, it impacts people.
Right. So I think for me, that's why it's frustrating that it's not being talked about. I mean, literally, this started in 1949.
Yeah,
That's when it like was first like created. I think out of all of them, I think that's the longest.
I think so. That we've at least talked about or that I've
Yeah.
seen. Yeah, which, I mean,
I mean, that was right after World War II.
yeah, but
So it makes sense. But like the fact that that's the longest and it's still not being so public is very odd.
exactly.
And
What
it's,
other, what other awareness months
are what? Are old?
is in May to see if, like,
Oh, there's probably like Cookie Monsters.
I'm here for that.
Imagine. Now I
But
want cookies.
okay, so May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Yep.
I haven't seen anything about that.
Nope.
National Military Appreciation Month. I remember that being
Oh,
a
I
thing.
appreciate you, Mariah.
Um,
Haven't
there,
seen anything about that either.
no. There's weeks, like one week is Children's Mental Health Awareness Week, which is huge.
Haven't seen anything
I
about
haven't
that.
seen anything.
I wonder, I mean, do you think it would be, I mean, that could be a good thing for the girls' daycare.
Yeah, I'll have to see what they're doing because I know they have a lot planned. I know, so National Nurses Week, I do hear a lot about that, but because
Sometimes I hear about, I feel like every year is different up here.
yeah, I have a handful of two nurses in my life, so
Hmm.
that's why I hear about that.
That makes sense.
But even the VA, like they were celebrating their nurses and stuff like
Oh,
that. I
that's
remember,
awesome.
yeah, I remember getting emails and seeing
That's
posts on
awesome.
it. I'm like, okay, this is cool. But yeah, it's not as mental
Has
health
the VA done anything about mental health awareness month?
that I've seen where, I mean, that's a problem. But then
Yeah.
sometimes aren't. I'll speak from my heart is after being in the military and then getting out, if my therapist doesn't have military experience or anything like that, I don't like trust them because I'm like, how can you understand what I saw or what I went through without seeing it or going through it yourself? Yes, you have training.
Mhm.
I know we get some training, but like it's that life experience.
Yeah, I hear that. I
Yeah.
experienced that a lot.
Yeah.
Not with the military, but like because I do not have kids,
Yeah.
even though I am their guide kid mom, but I do not personally have children. People are like, well, you don't have children, like you don't know what it's like, and it's like you're right, but I
Mhm.
do know a lot about children and their
Exactly.
behaviors and mental health.
Yeah.
So I may not have children of my own,
Mhm.
but you would be surprised. And so it makes sense. I think I wish, I wonder, I honestly, like, if I didn't have anything about this in like school, we
No.
didn't talk about this in social work master's program. So, like, that's the thing 1949. And yet, throughout all of our big things, Mariah in the military, us in our master's program, us in regular school, maybe Mariah's children have it at school. We don't know yet. But like that's an issue, and that's why we need this month, and that's why mental health awareness is so important. It's just so
So important.
important. So
It's
important.
exactly.
Um, so there are a couple of helplines and emails and chats that I will be putting in the description. There is one specifically for adults, and then there's one specifically for teens and young adults. I'll also be putting information from the Trevor Project specifically for LGBTQ plus teenagers because that is the highest. Gun violence is the first, but dying by suicide is the second for LGBTQ plus teenagers and children. But also, I took my glasses off and now I can't see what I was going to say.
And no, I know there's rumors, there's all this stuff going around saying that they are defunding and getting rid of the
Yeah,
LGBTQIA aspect of some of these. That still means you can call them
right.
and use those resources. It's just not going to be a
As
different,
easy.
yeah, it's not going to be a different lifeline or a different area. It's just going to be the general area of it.
Yeah. So I put some myths versus facts
Yeah.
just because I thought that could be really helpful. Because even though Mariah and I gave a bunch of examples,
Mm-hmm.
this is like from actual like people who live their lives surrounding this. This is from Namie. Obviously, I'll put all the links in the description. But fact, mental health issues can affect anyone. In 2020, about 1 in 5 American adults experienced a mental health condition in a given year. 1 in 6 young people have experienced a major depressive episode. 1 in 20 Americans have lived with a serious mental illness such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. That one I didn't know
I
how
didn't
how significant because
know.
that one, I mean, that means it's so either misdiagnosed or I didn't know it was that many people.
And I know that it's probably, I would feel like it's more than that too, because I know so many clinicians or therapists, doctors, providers of any sort want, at least the bigger ones like schizophrenia, bipolar stuff,
Mm,
want to save that for the last possible diagnosis to
yes,
ensure that that's not on somebody's permanent record
right,
for them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what Mariah is specifically talking about is if we have specifically with teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
we do not feel comfortable, at least I personally do, I can't speak for you, do not feel comfortable diagnosing children, teenagers, with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder
And technically,
until,
you're not supposed to.
but people do,
Oh, I know. I
which
was
is just,
misdiagnosed at 12 with bipolar,
mhm.
um, because my dad died when I was 9. Went through some stuff, obviously.
Just like
Um,
some.
just um, I was 12, so hormonal. Lost a
Mm,
dad. Mom had a boyfriend who sure as hell wasn't my dad. Um,
going through puberty.
Puberty, all of this stuff. They diagnosed me with bipolar just because my dad had that diagnosis at 12. They put me on the medication, which made me severely sick, like throwing
Understandable.
a pile, like bad. And then they're like, "Oh, it might not be that." Like looking back, no shit,
Oh,
no shit. Oh my goodness.
oh my god. That's so fucking annoying. And the
It
thing is,
is.
like, that's what's scary. And like I said, and like epilepsy and the change with psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, like I can imagine that makes people sick. So like, it's just like that's why we are so careful. I mean, personally, I don't like it, but they say to diagnose at 18 when they're an adult, but
Yeah.
even though their brain has not fully developed till they're 24, 24 or 26.
I think it's dependent on gender,
Okay. Um,
logical gender.
um, and so I have issues with that, but either way, 18 is when you're supposed to.
So when you're able to, and then like I'll we can go on and on about the DSM where so many different things look like each other. Like we compare PTSD and major depression, right?
Mhm.
It's a lot of the symptomology is very similar. It's just the certain characteristics or incidents around it or anything like
What's a
that.
characteristic for people who don't know what that means?
Characteristic that the symptomology, right? Of you know PTSD trauma that was what was it more than 6 months ago? Um,
Yeah, you
yeah,
have to had to experience trauma for and having a specific reaction for a certain amount of time. The certain amount of time is like the big thing in the DSM.
exactly. It's about the time and meeting the certain amount of characteristics that classify even major depression mild, severe.
Adjustment disorder, which is like it only can be for like 6 months. It can't be
Yeah,
for like a long extended period of
exactly.
time.
Exactly. So it's very time based. It's very how it impacts your life. What different aspects it impacts your life, school and work, home, socialization, all of this different stuff goes into it. And if you ask me, like, the test that we had to take, it's like, which diagnosis is this? I'm like, this could be 5 different ones because they don't give you enough
They give
information.
you like two sentences. They're like, "Oh, they were mad. They had a fight with mom."
Yeah. What is this?
They
Drug
did
use, ODD, normal
behavior
childhood
disorder. Like, what is
development.
happening? Yeah.
So it's very yeah. And with those tests, you can't have the book, obviously, the DSM. And for DSM, it's Diagnostic Statistics Manual, and we're on the fifth edition of that.
Mhm. And also, my big thing, and I don't see a lot of. The only reason that I'm bringing it up is because Mariah and I are social workers. Is if you feel like you need more information about what's going on, I highly suggest getting a neuropsych. That includes ADHD, autism, that includes, which are mental health too.
They are.
And because there is such a significant autism, because there is such a significant amount of people who are being diagnosed, wanting to make sure adults who were like, I never realized that I may have something, now they're getting diagnosed. The neuropsychs wait list is almost a year and a half.
It
It's
is.
extremely long.
It's long. It's expensive if your insurance doesn't cover it. But it narrows it down. Even like dyslexia or
Yeah.
what are some other learning ones? The
The auditory.
auditory processing disorders. These are all mental health stuff because it's impacting the brain, it's impacting focus and attention and sleep and everything like that.
And then they give suggestions on what to do, which is helpful for if your child is in school or if you're in college, or even if you're working. Like it helps. They do give recommendations at the end. So if
Exactly.
you feel like you are struggling, or you're like, you know what, I've been hearing a lot about this,
Yeah,
and I don't really think I really have it. Get a
exactly.
neuropsych. You will
Exactly.
have to see a PCP or a psychologist before they need to refer you.
Yeah,
But it's pretty easy. But the biggest thing is the wait list.
exactly. And even with that, forgot what I was going to say. We're seeing more and more like, ADHD is becoming a big thing, autism is becoming a big thing. It's because it's now being talked about. It's now being,
Yeah.
I think we mentioned before, ADHD, biggest example because it impacts us. Um, the criteria for ADHD was divided at first and now it's together, which ADD, ADHD all together. Um, was originally the criteria was based off of males, off of white males, which we've talked about how some of this stuff is based off of race and culture and identity.
And how that's not helpful.
Exactly. And that's why
Everyone's different.
Yeah, and for me, at least down here, I saw a lot of females coming in midlife, 30, 40, 50, of like, I can't focus. I can't do this. It's been like this forever. I'm a perfectionist. Everything has to go in place. And it's like they get diagnosed with ADHD because it presents different for the most part.
Yeah,
And
when
people,
did you get diagnosed? No, yeah, you were just diagnosed.
I was just diagnosed. And how old am I? Almost 33, right? My kids' birthdays matter more than mine. I don't know how old I am. I've lost track.
I think you're
I'm ready. That should be a
I think you're
diagnosis.
33. I think
33.
so.
I'm about to turn 30.
Yeah.
I was born in 91. Do the math yourself.
And that's the thing, like, and that's why I think an example why what's happening with autism and the quote unquote registry that RFK Jr. is talking about is so infuriating to us. It's
Very.
because autism is being diagnosed more is because, like Mariah just said, we are understanding these mental health conditions more. We are able to diagnose properly. Also, people are taking mental health more seriously now than they were in the 1950s. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Exactly. And the fact that he's saying like they're never going to be productive members of society, they're never going to be in relationships. I know so many people who have autism that do work, that are in relationships, that have raised kids, that are amazing people. They might just become a little bit more dysregulated when schedules change, or a
Mhm.
noise is a certain way, or clothing is touching them in a weird way. Like, just because somebody has this diagnosis doesn't mean that they're useless.
And the thing is that I have worked my first internship was with adults who had intellectual disabilities in college. They went to college classes. They did college homework and assignments. They had relationships. I mean, literally on Netflix, there's a show called Love on the Fucking Spectrum. Okay, I added the fucking, but Love on the Spectrum.
And it's so cute. And like, okay, so yeah, there are individuals who have autism that are more severe on the spectrum that
Yeah,
can't have jobs, that can't function.
but they are still human
They're
beings.
humans, and they're still human beings and deserve to be treated like human beings. And if we're going down that route of they need to be on a registry and contained and all this other stuff, okay, you're done. And I'm not diagnosing that. And I will punch anybody that tries to touch me.
Eugenics, baby.
Yep.
So, again,
Mhm.
mental health is still significant. Oh, also, if you really want to get into it, the fucking president of the United States definitely has cognitive delays. That's still mental health. So, like, I mean, why it's not, why it's so important to talk about it.
But he's 212 pounds and has the healthy BMI. And I mean, whew,
He is
he's
the
got some
fittest
muscles
person
on
they have
him.
ever worked with.
Oh boy. So they say he's mentally sound.
He literally talked about Afghanistan when he was talking about, like, tariffs or something.
Can't even remember his kids and his wife's name or
Well,
stand up straight
honestly.
or anything like that. But no, he's healthy. He's super fit. He's
Yeah.
very fit.
Like, I feel like people forget, like, when you grow older, like, your brain changes.
And it's normal and it's supposed to change. And
How
there's
old is
things
he?
that
80? Hey
what?
Google, how old is Donald Trump?
Did
How old is he?
it say
How
78?
old is Donald Trump? Hey Google, how old is Donald Trump? He's fucking 78 years old.
Yeah, it's bound to happen. To have some cognitive delays.
Yeah. And him
Mhm.
falling asleep at the Saudi conference. So, like,
But only Sleepy Joe does that.
and that's the thing, like, it's just, we need to recognize it and we
Yeah.
need to call it out because if we're like, showing people, oh, he's fine, then people in their life who are behaving the same way are not going to get the help that they need.
Exactly. And it's just normalizing it. Like, just normalize it. Normalize with age. Stuff happens to your brain. Your body starts wearing down from life. That's normal.
Have
And
people
it's
not seen
okay.
Benjamin Button? You haven't seen Benjamin
I
Button?
have. It's just been a
Okay.
while.
But like that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
he aged and he changed.
Yeah. 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 So, that's just goes to show that it why this month is so important is talk about it, normalize it. If you're noticing changes, even if you're not older, but like if you have diabetes, that can impact your mood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I mean diabetes alone, if your sugar spikes or drops so much, you can go into psychosis.
Yes. What is
Uh,
psychosis for people who don't
Psych-
know what that is? I think it's like it's a various thing. It's like
it's very, yeah, where you're having
um
delusions or
yeah,
hallucinations. And
depends on the person too.
exactly, it's dependent on you. Where it's usually pretty brief if it's a medical related one. Like
Okay.
I had a client that had an infection that just kept going on and on and on, and they ended up going into psychosis, a
That's
brief
so
psychotic.
scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. Where they weren't able to communicate, where they thought they were communicating, but it was very jumbled. Um, so like it varies from person to person and reason, but like you can be in the best health and manage, but something can happen like a brief psychosis because there's something else going on.
Mhm.
Your gut health is related to your mental health, and your mental health is related to your gut health. So much of this, and it's normal because it's all impacting hormones and
Yeah.
chemicals in your body and everything. So, um, yeah.
Can you tell we think this month is important? Um,
We didn't get into social work and clinical social work for no reason.
yeah, we didn't think like, "Ah, you know what? Let me become a cop instead."
Yeah,
No.
no, it was I it wasn't for the pay. That sure as hell isn't it. Um, there is no pay in this, at least at our level. I don't even know if it's at a higher level. Um,
Yeah, I think our pay is starting to get higher and we're starting to get taken a little bit more seriously, but it's not like we're doctors, even though we basically are doctors, but like
and
it's
if you
fine.
and people are like, oh, you get paid so much, all this other stuff. Your insurance might pay $150 per session, maybe, but we don't get that.
Yeah.
Don't get that. They
That's
might
called
tell you
insurance taking it.
exactly, exactly. They say you have up to this amount to spend on therapy. You don't see
Yeah, so like let's be realistic.
that. Exactly.
One thing that when I was doing research though that broke my heart that I
Mm-hmm.
think is important. Now, Suicide Prevention Month is another month.
Yeah.
But suicide obviously is significant to mental health. Um, Suicide is the leading cause of death in the United States.
Wow.
So that's including adults. Remember, guns are for children.
Uh-huh.
In fact, it was the second leading cause of death for people aged 10 to 24.
And
So I'm guessing this. It doesn't say when this was this number, but the only reason I know about the guns is because of the recent school shootings. They like were talking about it, so that's why. But I for this specific they didn't have like it on the NAMI website, but it says suicide has accounted for the loss of more than 45,979 American lives in 2020, nearly double the lives of lost to homicide. And then on top of that, we lost over 1 million people to COVID. That's a lot of fucking people.
that is,
And COVID was very hard in America,
yeah, it
very
was.
isolating.
And we're seeing the impacts of it now. Like a lot of children, young adults coming in with social anxiety because they spent critical years at home, locked up
Hmm.
behind a computer. They don't know how to socialize that well.
Yeah. Or they, one thing that's very common that I've heard, and I know the news has reported a lot,
Mhm.
is the behaviors
Yeah. Yeah.
in classrooms. Kids don't know how to behave anymore
Exactly.
because during the critical years, they weren't being taught different behaviors that they're taught in school.
They aren't told that you have to sit down for 15 minutes at a time, listen to the teacher, anything like that, because when they were behind a computer, it was what, maybe 2, 3 hours a day that they just had to get stuff done.
And you can easily mute yourself if you're talking. You can't mute yourself in class.
No, so it's very different. But I'm shocked to see the age 10, and that's heartbreaking.
I know that every time I see a story about a child,
Mm-hmm.
I think 18 and under,
Mm-hmm.
it just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember what happened? Her name was Phoebe. She was from Ireland and came here. She was significantly bullied, and then she died by suicide because the reason why is the girls were mad because she the guy that like that the bullies liked were
Mm-hmm.
talking to her.
Sounds familiar, but I know there's so many instances like that where what was it? The one guy was
Phoebe
it
Prince,
No, I don't know. Maybe.
um, 2010.
Maybe then. I don't know my birthday. I can't even remember
Yeah,
2010.
that one really sticks out to me. And then also the one where the girlfriend
Yeah,
convinced
that's the one
her.
I was mentioning. Yeah, that just I'm gonna say recently, but it's probably been 10 years now.
No,
That
she just got out.
well, I was talking about the case.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I thought it was more recent that the case happened where she
I'll look that up.
yeah, it's probably been 10 years.
Who? Well, we haven't even talked about the case. I know what you're talking about. Sorry. Go.
So,
What are you
so
talking about?
they were in this relationship, and this guy and the girl, and he was one.
They were like
What
16, right?
they were going through. He was going through stuff at home. He kept saying like, "I'm going to kill myself," or "I'm just sad and depressed." And she was sending him text messages of like, "I'm here for you. Like, it's okay to do that." Like, giving him ideas on how to kill himself.
Conrad Roy. It happened in 2014.
Okay, so yeah, 10 years ago.
He
See,
was 18.
yeah, but it's
Um,
just
she went to jail. Michelle Carter went to jail for 5 years, which is nothing. But like, she knew he was gonna kill himself,
yeah,
and she didn't tell anyone.
yep. She pretty much just encouraged him.
And that's why it was a really significant case. They actually have a docu.
Series.
No, it's not it's like a biopic series. You know, like it's like there's actors
Yeah.
who play,
Yes.
but it's not. It's like the story.
It's the story,
Is
but
that
it's
called a biopic?
I know.
But yeah, so like unfortunately, suicide with teenagers and children are really significant. Bullying is out of control,
Well, you
and
got all on top of the hormones, on top of
trauma.
everything else that happens, and you then talk about medications, not even just mental health medications. This is what I found out recently. Uh, Accutane, the acne
Okay,
medicine,
I can imagine, yeah.
one of the biggest symptoms is suicide.
And it's still legal.
Yeah, found
Well,
that one out. Yeah,
that's
from
disturbing.
a client that was on it and started having suicidal ideations
That's so scary.
and was admitted and then was like, oh yeah, it was the medication. I'm like, good to know. That's good to know. So yeah, even acne medicine
Yeah.
can do it. Yeah.
The one last little girl I want to talk about is Jocelyn Rojo Carranza, 11 years old in Texas. Just happened February 2025. She died by suicide because kids in her school were saying that her parents were going to get deported.
Oh yes.
They were making fun of her and constantly saying that she's going to be alone. and that her parents are going to be deported.
Because kids are assholes. But
Honestly,
obviously
they
at
should
that
be charged with
age,
her death. I'm just honest.
you know, kids are assholes. And at that age, they're learning that stuff from somewhere. They're hearing that stuff somewhere.
You don't hear
Uh,
deportations in
no,
11, like,
11-year-olds aren't worried about deportations.
no. Well, now they are because of
No, but yeah, no, because of all this.
yeah.
But that brings us into our next kind of factor myth of children don't experience mental health issues, which obviously is a myth because from what minute 10 in this, we talked about how there's a child this week.
Yeah.
So, fact, even very young children may show early warning signs of mental health concerns. These mental health conditions are often clinically diagnosable and can be a product of the interaction of biological, psychological, and social factors. So, like we said, dyslexia, autism, ADHD, anxiety, separation anxiety is a big one, especially for babies. Like, all of this happens at a young age.
Mhm.
Half of all mental health disorders show first signs before a person turns 14 years old, and three-quarters of mental health disorders begin before age 24. Unfortunately, only half of children and adolescents with diagnosable mental health conditions receive the treatment they need. And early mental health support can help a child before problems interfere with their developmental needs. Um, and we'll again attach some links, but um, I'm I'm just gonna spell it out. This is from
Sam
SAMHSA.
Samsa.
I think so.
I think that,
That's what
yeah.
I thought, but then it doesn't sound right in my
No,
head.
that's
That
okay. That was how I guessed it. But yeah.
yeah,
Um. And immediately, the first thing that came to mind when I was researching is school shootings.
yeah,
And how, well, the right is Republicans are saying it's mental health, but then they cut mental health funding. They
yeah.
refuse to increase mental health funding. Um, Before they were blaming video games, like the violent, like COD.
Which I'm sure opened up that train of thought.
Hmm. And but how it all started, Columbine. That
Yeah,
these two children were being significantly bullied,
yeah,
and there were signs. People who have interviewed the teachers, other students, saw significant signs that said there was something going on,
yeah.
and no one helped. I'm not excusing their behavior at all,
No,
but I'm saying that it's significant.
exactly,
Most of
exactly.
these school shootings are, they don't just come up out of nowhere.
Yeah, there's not just a random thought of, you know what's gonna be fun? I'm just gonna bring my dad's gun into work today and shoot up the school, or into school today and shoot up the school. That's not just
Something
a
that pops in your head.
no. That takes some effort of something's going on at school that's not being addressed. Something's going on mentally that's not being addressed. Um, and
All
it's
sides, something at school and at home. There's no
exactly
space for safety, and this
yeah,
is their only option, quote unquote, in their mind. Like, and that's why, me personally, and I know Mariah too, are such vocal advocates of gun control. Even though I don't like guns, Mariah has a gun, but Mariah still is pro common sense gun control
yep,
for
yeah,
these reasons.
exactly. And like the kids that have shot at schools or brought a weapon into a school and whose parents are getting charged with it too.
Finally, that should have
Good.
started a long time ago.
It should because especially the one I'm going to say recently again. But he brought a gun into school, shot kids. It was found out that
What state?
I can't remember. It was the one where it was found out that dad bought the gun for Christmas for him, a year prior he was under
I know
investigation
exactly what
for
you're talking.
threatening
I know what
to
you're talking about. I just don't. I know exactly which one. I just can't
kill.
remember the state. So
Do you
dad
know?
bought the gun
Yeah.
to the child
Hmm.
for a year prior to this, and there
Yeah.
was already an investigation by the police about
Yeah.
his hit on the child for potentially
Yeah.
making threats against shooting up the school.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
instead of taking away the gun, they left the gun, and unfortunately children and I think some teachers lost their lives because of
Exactly.
that.
And
So
I think a parent should 100% be charged. Your son was under an investigation for threatening to shoot up the school, and you go out and buy him a rifle to
it's his
hunt
birthday.
for birthday or Christmas, something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
his birthday. We gotta celebrate.
Yeah, like let's go hunt. Like cool. My husband hunts. My family's hunted. Cool. But if my child was under an investigation for threatening to shoot up a school, they would not be getting a gun and they would be getting mental health help.
And that's why with these gun control laws,
Hmm.
if that would have been flagged.
Yeah, exactly.
So like this
Exactly.
is why mental health and gun control and school shootings are
Yeah.
so connected. And
Yeah.
yet, for whatever reason, we have to protect Second Amendment.
Yeah. Yep. Even though it wasn't written for the high powered rifles and crap that we have now.
They
But I mean,
literally were using powder.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's just so stupid. But like I and that's why I wish there's a couple of things about schools in general. I would love to be a school counselor and to support it. But the problem and the reason I'm not and I didn't become one is because of the bureaucracy and how you advocate for these children
Hmm.
and you're not listened to.
Yeah.
So, how is that fair to these children who you're saying there's signs? You're telling their parents there's signs. The school doesn't have your back. Like, there is significant things.
Hmm.
And yet, for whatever reason, it's just
Our system's failing our kids because,
100%.
yeah, I mean, prior to the birth of my second child, I was a school therapist. I went into a school district once or twice a week. Um, and it was a shit show. It
How old
was,
are they?
they were elementary school kids,
To
like 10,
like,
11, 12.
okay, yeah.
Um, it was a shit show. And there was no support, and confidentiality wasn't kept. And I would say, like, I would make recommendations. It wouldn't be followed. While they're troubled kids, they're always going to be trouble. Get them the resources. Never happened.
No, we're just
Um,
going to stigmatize them.
exactly. So that happened with the school districts. And then, I mean, even when I worked at the Child Advocacy Center, you would work with schools, you would work with DSS, you would work with law enforcement. She was wearing a crop top, that's why she deserved to get raped.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The
And
system is setting our kids up for failure.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I've spoken about this in previous episodes, but my high school failed me when
Yes. Yeah.
during my when I was dealing with my endometriosis.
Mhm.
Um I easily should have had more support, especially mentally. Like my body was fighting against me. My body was physically hurting me and no one was believing me, and that took a severe mental toll on me because I didn't know what was going on with my body. And I was told, well, it's your depression, or it's all in your head, or
Okay.
it's a really bad period.
Mm-hmm.
And my school, instead of supporting me and saying, like, we will set up stuff for you and the teachers, and like that is still helpful for mental health.
Yep.
You'll meet with schools. Instead, no, they literally told my mom, your daughter's faking it
Yeah.
and she's using you.
And that's what it comes down to of like, you know, we said it earlier in the episode, and like some of these intellectual disabilities weren't as prevalent or weren't as talked about. I remember growing up, looking back, I 100% have dyslexia. Um,
Have you ever
and
been tested?
no, because I made it through school. Why do I need to be tested? I figured it
I
out.
don't know. I'm saying I don't.
The way I read, mm-mm. And then you add the ADHD, like this stuff wasn't talked about. There weren't resources back when I
Mhm.
was growing up 20 years ago. Um,
Yeah, teachers weren't. Which
yeah,
I don't understand why teachers are not trained in mental health.
they're trained and this child isn't following the rules like they're supposed to be. They're a troublemaker. Get them into in-school suspension, transfer them to a school, not discharge them, kick them out of school kind of situation. That's what they're trained in. They're not following the rules and expectations. The moment they start acting different, it's like, oh, you're trouble. Go someplace else.
Yeah. It's just, it's so sad. And that's why, like, kids and teenagers are my thing, specifically because of this.
Yeah,
Like, I loved working with them because I wanted to support them because I know how much schools have failed. I know how much parents don't know, or refuse or are in denial for various reasons. Um, it's a big deal, and so that's kind of like our educational piece, I guess.
yeah,
And then I think it is important. We did have like talked about it like a little bit throughout the episode about our own mental health experiences. But is there, Mariah, a specific time where you felt like you were not listened to, or you felt like you were told it's all in your head or you're faking it? Like, is there a specific
definitely.
time?
I mean, my whole life. Um, I mean, like I said, my dad died at 9. I
You
was in
were
total.
9. Your dad did not die at 9.
No, I was 9 when my dad died.
Your dad was young. 45?
He was 41.
Oh, why are you
41.
looking at me? I wasn't there.
Making me math again. He was early 40s.
Early 40. I thought maybe he wasn't 43. You've told me. I just can't remember.
He was 41.
Okay. See? You got it.
Yeah. After that, like being a total daddy's girl, being the middle child. I, my mom's admitted it and we talked through it of like, your brother had a bad relationship with your dad and he had to stand up and be the man of the house. Your little sister was 20 months when he died. Um, so
Oh,
she,
and you were 9.
and I was 9 and my brother was 11. Um, and she had to like grow up without a dad. So my mom's like, because you had so many good memories, I thought you were fine. Um, until I attempted, and that got taken seriously. Um, when it comes to like trauma, I can remember my telling at the age of 15 or 16 that I was sexually abused and not being taken seriously, which makes mental health even worse.
Yeah.
On top of being suicidal at that point too. Um,
Why people do not come forward. I mean, that was our big thing
yeah,
last episode.
yeah, exactly. And then in the military, you're fine. Part of my job was to document suicides. It was to document domestic violence, any incident that happened on the base. We documented it um, through photography.
Oh, you had to photograph too?
Yeah. Um, and there was no support in that. It's like, okay, you documented this. Okay, you can have a day off. If I went to
Okay.
mental health, I had to take vacation time to go to this doctor's appointment. Um, it wasn't you weren't taken seriously. Um, so yeah, and then getting out, and it's like, yeah, we're a little messed up.
Right.
And I finally started feeling hurt at that point because I was speaking out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big reasons I actually got into the social work field. I knew I wanted to go into the medical field. I thought about nurses. I can't do blood. um, so I went the social work route thinking like there's a lot of opportunities. And then I got into the clinical side and I loved it. Like that's where I felt called. So that's a reason why I got into this because I know I wanted to help people
Mm.
and hear their stories because that was also part of my job, interviewing people. Um, and it kind of just fell in my lap. So knowing that veterans, I mean, we didn't talk about the number, but I did just research it. There in 2022, there were 6,407 suicides among veterans and 41,484 among non-veteran U.S. adults, which equates to about 17.6 veteran suicides per day and 131.2 suicides per day. So, I mean, you think about that, and like I said, I documented suicides. Um, Knowing that mental health wasn't taken seriously in the military was a reason. Like, we need help in this career field. We need help with this awareness and normalizing, seeking help, talking to people, being there for people.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No, it makes sense. I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing is just, I think with our specific generation, the millennial generation, we are all, at least I've noticed, trying so hard to separate ourselves from the boomer generation of you don't have feelings. Shut those feelings down. We're
Exactly.
not going to talk about it. We are trying so hard to break generational trauma, to talk about autism, to talk about mental health, to make it significant because it's impacted so many of us.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so I think that makes sense. I mean, I think the big ones for me was the medical aspects. Having being told when you are bleeding
Mhm.
and being told your pain is normal,
Mhm.
your period is normal, this is normal, um, over and over again, and you end up bleeding for 6 months as a child, it's pretty disheartening.
Mhm. I could imagine.
Then you're told when you go to school, you constantly are in the nurse, and the nurse is like, you really need to go back to class when you can barely function. But the school is forcing your mom to send you to school because of truancy.
Yeah. And if you don't go to school, and then you get truancy, and then DSS gets involved, and or DHS, whatever it's called in your state. Yeah, it's not fun.
And then, obviously, my mom was working, my
Mhm.
dad was working.
Mhm.
So the stress of it for them, I can imagine. But for me, I just didn't know what was happening to my body.
Exactly. You were just being told it's all normal, and like you said previously, that is not normal.
It's not normal to be in excruciating pain when you're on your period. It's not. You should be able to function. You should not be fainting. You should not be curled up. You should not have to miss work for a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
And having not only the doctors tell me you're fine, but then having the school tell me your daughter's lying to you,
Mhm.
I was surrounded by people who just didn't believe me.
Yep.
I do think that for my school specifically, it was due to racism. Um, Even though my school was mainly Spanish and Brazilians, it was a very BIPOC high school. But the administration was very white.
Gotcha. Yeah. And again, the bureaucracy, the old ways of things, and just not school, and between veterans and being a mom, you know, postpartum anxiety and depression wasn't talked about with her parents, wasn't acknowledged. You were supposed to go home and be totally fine and be happy and listening that you have your baby home. Um, it wasn't until I got pregnant with my first daughter that my mom's like, you need to be aware of this because I had thoughts of like driving off the road with you. And I was afraid.
Mm.
And
Postpartum
like
is not talked about.
it's not talked about enough. And we're not in the same situation as our parents or our grandparents where we have a village.
Right.
Yes, it's my choice that I moved away, but people aren't there for each other as much as they used to be.
And it's
So
also not like you can't live on one income anymore like you used to.
exactly,
So like
exactly.
people used to be able, the one parent, usually the mom, would stay home
Hmm.
while the father worked. You
Exactly. And we
can't
think
do that.
about it. You look back then, like, what were the married women doing when their husbands were at work? Like opioids, and they were doing drugs.
Again,
Drinking, like it was a thing. Um, why do you think they were using drugs and drinking and everything like that? I wonder. Because they weren't happy. They were just living this life because there was not things not being talked about. So yeah, we're breaking those generational things. We're talking about postpartum anxiety, depression, um, postpartum psychosis is even a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
was
even
never talked about ever.
no, never talked about at all. And yes, I'm sure fathers get the stressor. I can't speak for them. I'm the mom. Um, but yes, there's stressors with them and financials and worrying about. I know he worried about like giving my girls UTIs because of wiping them the wrong way. He's like, I don't want to get poop in their vagina. Just wipe
I don't
them.
think it starts that way, but yes.
Just wipe them down. Don't wipe up. Come on now. But like that's the stuff he worried about, and I'm over here like I just need them to sleep, and my boobs hurt from pumping, and I'm exhausted because she's on me 24/7.
And my feet are swollen and my back is killing me.
And my vagina's falling out of me because of all the shedding. Like, just wipe their vagina. Um, but like all of this stuff with the changing of cycles and changing of age and life roles need to be talked about more and normalized.
And that's why we're here, because we're
Yeah,
the Wait Here Please podcast. And we like
exactly.
to break generational trauma and shit and talk about taboo subjects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it may be a lot that we have
Mhm.
awareness episodes, but these episodes are significant for a very specific reason.
Yeah,
And without these episodes and without people talking about it, children cannot be helped. Teenagers cannot be helped. Young adults cannot be helped. Teenage adults cannot be helped. Elderly people cannot be helped.
exactly. Exactly. And like, there's so many resources. We'll attach some of the links that we got our resources, our information from psychologytoday.com. If you need a counselor, if you need somebody to talk to,
I'll put the link down there.
we'll put it in there. It connects you with therapists within your health insurance or price range that has availability. You can pick male, female, kind of whatever you need. There's so many resources out there that it's okay if you reach out. That's why they're out there.
That's the biggest thing. If you are struggling with mental health, please reach out. It does
Exactly.
not mean you're weak. It does
No.
not mean you're a bad person. It does not mean that people will look at you differently. It means that you deserve to live a good life and you don't deserve to be upset and angry, having serious thoughts of harming yourself or others. And that's why getting help is significant.
Exactly. And by reaching out and getting help or realizing that you need something more, that shows that you have strength. That shows that you have awareness because it is hard to reach out and talk to somebody new or that you don't know. Like, we get that. I find it weird. Um, but that just shows that you have strength and you have recognition in your health, in your own mind, that you need some guidance, you need some assistance one way or another.
And you can't, as RuPaul always says, how are you supposed to love? How is anybody supposed to love you if you can't love yourself?
Exactly.
How are you supposed to take care of others if you can't take care of yourself?
Exactly. And we know that's easier said than done.
Yep.
Because I know Sophie has to remind me all the time to just fucking relax.
I swear,
Weekly.
like
It's a
when
weekly
we're
thing.
neighbors, I'm gonna have to like wrestle her to the ground and be like, "You're fucking staying here. Don't move."
It's a weekly thing that she has to remind me, so I get it.
Daily, more like.
Um,
What are you talking about? I'm like, take a fucking nap. But I have to take a nap. No.
but I have laundry and I have to do the dishes and then I have to pick up the girls from
I don't
daycare.
take care. Take a nap. That's our relationship.
It is.
So you gotta
It
take
is.
care of yourself.
You do. You do. And it's important. And if you're seeing it in your kids or somebody in close to you or friends, ask them. And we didn't go into this, but by mentioning suicide, you don't put it in their head. That's a myth.
No.
That's a myth. You don't put it in somebody's head if you be like, hey, you suicidal? It doesn't put it in their head.
Yeah, and if you don't feel comfortable even saying that, just be like, hey, like,
You
you've been
good?
really down lately.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's other ways you can check on this person
Exactly.
without saying the word suicide if that's something that really freaks you out. What is that?
He's sleeping. He's on nights this week.
It's okay.
Yeah, take
Well,
care of you.
take care of yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
we will see you on the next episode. And please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
all the links below.
Yes,
And our DMs are open. Always.
always. Yes.
Always. Okay. Well, we hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are.
Yeah.
And we will see you in the next episode of Wait Here, Please.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Where's the mouse? Oh.